Hi there. I just wanted to show this way of starting a soft meet, a soft start of a meet. So I had this introduction here. We put the Pear Deck link in, and then if I wanted to with a class, I can show people's answers. So we've got Caitlin from Bridgewater State. She enjoys working with children. Love of learning. Love working with children, love encouraging students. So we've just got a whole bunch of different reasons.
I think we have Bridgewater State here. Like, wow.
A lot of people from Bridgewater State. That's awesome. So I'm a middle school teacher, and I'm going to say that I have always figured that most people who want to be elementary school teachers have wanted to be teachers since they were about 8. And people in middle school and high school decide it later on.
So I can honestly say that that might be true because I was a high school teacher and it was not going to be my first, definitely wasn't what I majored in college at all.
Yeah. Okay, so let me go to our title slide. Christine, you want to get us started?
Sure. So my name is Christine Lloyd. I work with Worcester Public Schools. I'm the science and engineering liaison there. I've been in the classroom for a little over 16 years, different places around the country, different places in Worcester, elementary, middle, high school. And I'll be doing the 2 kind of bookend sections today on vocabulary. And this is my co-host, or I should say host that I co-with, Michelle. Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm an ESL teacher in Worcester, and before that I was an ESL teacher in Fitchburg. And for a number of years I've been doing PDs on teaching academic vocabulary, and I'm modifying it only slightly during this year where we're doing remote learning. The tools that I'm teaching are good for classroom teaching as well. Okay. So before we get started, I just want to make a quick little PSA. Talking Points is not a company, it's a nonprofit whose mission is to help teachers communicate with families whose language is not English. So I don't know how many of you know about Talking Points, but it's one of those things where you can communicate with parents. You type something, it's in your computer, it goes to their text, they answer you. It works seamlessly with English and the parents' language. They get texts. And you can very easily text one or all of your students at the same time and return messages going to your email. And this is why I think Talking Points is the best. Unlike some other ones, parents don't have to opt in. So you can put all of your family's names, you load it up. And I'm going to tell you, in remote learning, I take attendance in the morning, and I've got 18 people here and 2 people absent. While the kids are doing their do now, I send a message to the parents. Hi, your daughter's not on. It's been 5 minutes. I even have it pre-made. Is she okay? And 3 minutes later, that child is in my meeting, sleepy-headed, woken up by their mother. So I use it all the time, communicating about undone assignments, and it doesn't impose a lot on parents because it's just, a little text, and then they write back, thank you.
And
So
they
it's
don't
not,
get your personal cell phone information or anything, right, Michelle?
no, it's not your personal cell phone information. It's all connected to your school email.
Perfect.
So my parents almost never have English as their preferred language, and it is invaluable. But even if most of your parents speak English, you always have a few parents who don't speak English, and you always have a few parents who aren't going to answer your calls, but might be okay with a text.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So now we're on to the main meat of our lesson. So here's our objective for today. Participants will learn how to use online resources and Google tools to efficiently target, teach, and reinforce high utility vocabulary terms as they naturally appear in context. Research shows that that is the most useful way to teach vocabulary, not coming with a preformed set of vocabulary lists or not doing the programs that are meant for vocabulary development, but whatever you're teaching, pulling out the high utility vocabulary words and teaching them then in that moment as they naturally appear in context.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Christine.
So this is our agenda for the today, kind of how you're going to see things roll out. So we're going to start with the multi-language translation tool. That's going to be an intro and then what we would consider a we do. So we're going to do something together with that. Then we're going to move into an academic vocabulary. There are two tools that Michelle is going to introduce you to. And again, we'll introduce them, a little we do. Then you're going to have at least 15 minutes of practice time to practice independently on your own with those tools. We're going to move on to some graphic organizers, matrix Frere models, and again, intro, we do, you do. And then we're going to end with some oral speaking tools. So how do we get our students to orally use that vocabulary? And again, we'll start off with an intro and then a we do, you do. So we're going to have 4 parts to our PD today.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I came into school at the end of August and I looked at my roster and there were, was it 7? I think there were originally 9 languages in my ESL 1 class, diminished down to 7. And, you know, in ESL 1, the kids really don't speak English. And you can act out a lot, you can do a lot with pictures, but some translation is required. And I thought, how in the world am I going to survive? I need a multi-language translation tool. And I was just sure there would be one. So I came home and I Googled it. I looked, and I figured, how is it possible that there's not a multi-language translation tool? There must be something. And I thought about it a little more and I'm like, well, Google owns all the different translations. I bet I could do it with a code in Google Sheets, you know, a formula. And I wasn't clever enough to figure out the formula, but I put a posting on a Google Forms help forum. Hey, can I do this? And I explained what I needed to do. And within 3 hours, a guy from India gave me a little piece of code, gave me a formula to put into Google Sheets. So let me show you this multi-language translation tool I made. Okay. Sorry, so it has different parts. When you're using it as a glossary, you can type the words that you want in any language. So your kids could type something in there in Spanish or Arabic or something, and then it translates into all these languages. And for a glossary, if you are careful about it, you can make really good glossaries. Now, translation is very good at machine translation, Google Translate. It's very good at figuring out which words you mean when you write in paragraphs. But if you're making a list, you need to be a little bit aware of language. So for example, the word tap has different meanings. But if I just type tap water or tap on the desk to, you know, put a collocation in there, it knows which tap I mean. Or like the word bark. So tree bark or a dog barked. In these other languages, those are totally different words, but in English, they're one. If I just put the word bark in there, I might not get the right translation. But if I put a few words around it to give it meaning, or for example, read a novel or a novel idea. In the other English, in the Romance languages, Spanish and Portuguese, it actually is similar. But if we were doing it in Arabic or Vietnamese, for example, it might be different. Also, you need to know whether something is a noun or a verb, because a cook, like he is a cook, is different than he cooks. So putting the article there or the to or something to indicate that it's a verb. To watch, a watch. And with newcomers, because past tense is so irregular with so many common words, if the word sleep is in there, I never give people the word sleep without saying sleep, slept, slept, eat, ate, eaten. Okay, so you can use this tool to make glossaries. Now, I have here this multi-language translation tool. If you don't click on it right now, but if you clicked on it here, you can get a hyperdoc, and that has 2 different sheets. It has a blank one that you can use, and it also has one with some examples and complete instructions. And in that multi-language translation tool, There is a video demo of how to change languages, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. Because we could spend the whole hour figuring out how to do that. What I want you to do is see where it says click here to make a copy of the multi-language translation tool. So you guys all click there. Hey, I have a question, Christine. Are you seeing my copy document?
I sure am.
Okay, so when you guys get the copy document, you do make a copy. It's legit, and it will make you a copy. Okay, so you can make your own copy, and you'll see that I have 3 tabs. I have one set vertical for glossaries, one set for back and forth communication, you know, if like you're sitting with some kids talking about things, or you both, they have their computer, you have yours, and then horizontal for directions or sentences. So for example, even in my classroom, when I teach ESL 1, all throughout the year, I'm going to have new kids coming in who don't know our procedures. And so I might type the really common things. So like, I might type, make a list, write 3 things you remember. You may make 3 things you remember about the video. You may write in any language. Now, I'm not going to have to keep teaching my kids this over and over again because they know it, but just being able to say this in a class is so useful. I type it and then it goes down into all the languages. So when I taught in a classroom, I kept this up all period, you know, ready to go and be projected on the screen. Or if there's some little text that we're reading, I can enter a text and just translate one text. So you can be playing around with your version of this right now. You'll notice in the glossaries. So I might, and when I'm going to teach an article, I might make this glossary list before, and we'll present it. We'll say the words all at once. I can put it out in Google Classroom.
So Michelle, they could access this through the link on Pear Deck. I also put the link in the chat. If anyone is having trouble accessing it, please just put that in the chat and I'll help you out. But you have about 5 minutes to play with it. And if you have questions or comments, put them in the chat and we'd love to hear them. So I think it was interesting, Michelle, you were talking about the words that you would always put kind of with those multi-meaning words, right? And so that is the idea of context clues. And I have a 4th grader at home. And so that's something that we're learning now. And that's going to maybe help your students if they're putting specific words in there to know what to write. But Sydney had a question. She asked if there's a way to add additional languages.
There is. So we're not going to do that during this class, but if you go in this hyperdoc here that you can have, there's I have a video that explains how to do it, but I can and I fear if I start doing it, it will just going to get sucked into it. But let me just show you. Hey, Christine, are we on my multi-language translation tool right now?
You are. I can see your comments about the formula that makes this work.
Yep. So there's the formula that makes this work. I have some little notes about this, but if you see, so here I have these words that I've typed, but let me get rid of this. If I type up here, it says basically whatever it is, translate it into Spanish. So I have like ES here. And in Portuguese, these things say whatever is in this cell, translate into PT, which is Portuguese.
Now, where did you get those codes from, Michelle?
They're called ISO codes. And in that document that I have over here, I have a list of ISO codes. And I honestly don't want to make changing the languages something that we're doing in this 90 minutes, but just know it's a pretty simple thing to do.
And the instructions are in that tool.
The instructions are in that tool.
Perfect. Great question, Sydney. Thank you.
Yeah. And what I'm going to say is, every year and you guys can keep working on it while I'm talking. You don't have to pay too much attention. Every year I make myself one that just matches my needs for that year. And this year, because of coronavirus, no newcomers are coming any place from any place but Puerto Rico, right? Like people are not coming to the United States from other countries. So this year I have one Portuguese speaking girl who came in December, and then everybody else speaks Spanish. So I just made myself a bookmark. And so I made a bookmark that has my document that I need for this year. So I have one that's English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And so every day when I'm starting to plan my new lessons, I just pull out the one that I have that I'm using for this year. And, you know, I can make it a little bigger because I don't have to have all the different languages in it.
I love it. And I think we're going to talk later about how you choose maybe which words might go in there.
Yeah. Okay, can I, here are uses for this. So you can use the horizontal tab and paste into slides, docs, or chat. So when I'm preparing my slides for instruction, when I'm using my newcomers, or if you were teaching a class that has literate newcomers in it, you can just copy and paste from this sheet into anything else you wanted. The glossaries, I always use the glossaries to pre-teach some vocabulary. And then the clarification, I keep this sheet that has just these things open kind of off screen. And whenever kids ask me a question, I just answer it and then paste it in the chat in all 3 languages. So I'll talk to the kids, I'll read my answer in English, but the kids can look at it in Spanish or Portuguese at the same time. And then for student input, students can type into the original cells in their native language and it translates into everything. I remember once we had some wicked bad girl drama in a class.
Never.
And the girl drama was going on with Haitian Creole, Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic. And none of these girls could speak English well at all. I don't even know how they interacted enough to get mad at each other. But we had a circle where we all looked at the screen and people shared my keyboard and we passed it around and everybody typed what they needed to say and we all read it. So it can be very useful. Now, the one thing where it's not useful, if you have kids who have interrupted education and they're not literate in their home language, if you have kids who have learning disabilities that mean they are not very good at reading and writing in their own language, or if you have kids that speak a language that is not in Google Translate. In Worcester, we have a big problem because Ga and Tree, 2 languages that are spoken in Ghana, are not in Google Translate. But for literate newcomers, it's a lifesaver.
Otherwise, we'll have to scaffold. All right, I think we can move on.
Yeah.
Keep moving. All right, so what we're going to do now is after each section, we're going to ask you to rate the usability of this resource. So we understand it's a very brief introduction. You got to play a little bit with the tool. And what we'd like to know from everyone in the group here is how likely are you to use something like this, the multi-language translation tool, in your teaching practice? A 0 being not likely to 7 being very likely. So you can drag your dot anywhere on that scale. And then how likely are you to share this with a colleague? And I think I want to stress that anything that Michelle and I share with you today, copy and share away. We are not afraid at all about you taking it and sharing it. That's how we all grew as teachers, was taking from others and kind of revising and editing it as our own. So please, if you want to, feel free to share. And how likely are you to share with colleagues? Again, the scale 0 to 7. If I have any newcomers that are coming in now, I want to make sure that I get you the Pear Deck link.
So we've got 51 people in the Pear Deck.
Perfect.
Christine, can you see how many people are in the?
We have 60, 2 of us would be 58. So we have just about everybody.
Okay.
And the Pear Deck link is there in the chat. Give everyone another minute or so to respond. About 30 seconds, not really a minute.
And then you are grown-ups, so I don't really need to do this with you, but I'm going to show you something that I use for my classroom all the time. I always used to use timers kind of up on the screen, but my kids have so many screens going that I have a built-in 30-second timer, and then I have like a 1 minute or a 3 minute timer. And when I want kids to wrap up, I just put it on my phone and hold it up here. And I can actually see it reflected in my screen.
All right, I feel like I'm always
Okay.
crossing my fingers at this point, right? Let's see what they said. Okay, not
Yeah.
bad. Definitely willing to share it and most likely going to use something like this in their teaching practice.
And I know that there are some school districts where English is just the language you use. More than 50% of the children in my school speak a language other than English at home. So most of them actually do speak quite good English, but we have a constant stream of newcomers where I teach.
All right, thank you guys.
Oh, let me just say one little thing. I used to teach like ESL 3 or ESL 4 right after ESL 1. And most of the kids in ESL 4 have been educated in the US and they're stronger in English than in Spanish. And they would always look up at what I had on the projected on the board and they would learn some new Spanish words. Oh, miss, I didn't know that word. Okay, so academic vocabulary. This quote here is actually a real quote. I can picture the boy who said it a long time ago, like probably about 2009 or something like that. Yeah, it was 2009. It was the first year in a new building. I was proctoring for MCAS, and I was proctoring in a group of kids that I didn't teach. So I didn't know these kids, but I was proctoring an MCAS, and it's supposed to be completely silent. And they're all supposed to be working. And all of a sudden, this boy goes, shoot, except he didn't say shoot. He used the bad word. And then he says, what does analyze mean? And he's like squishing his head. And then the other kids are like, oh yeah, I don't know what analyze means. What does analyze mean? Miss, what does analyze mean? And I'm like, I can't tell you. And I'm sorry. And in my head, I was doing a little dance because just like 4 days before, I had spent like 15 minutes talking about the word analyze with my 7th graders, just as it came up in a topic using this tool that I'm going to show you. And they all came into my class, the 7th grade. They're like, miss, the word analyze was on MCAS and nobody else knew it. And we did.
Proud mama, proud teacher moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was really useful. And that was actually the year that all of my ESL kids scored proficient on MCAS, except for one who was a special ed student who got a 93 growth percentile.
Love it.
So like we rocked it. So we all know about academic vocabulary. They're telling us we should teach academic vocabulary. But what does that mean? Who here knows the concept of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 words?
And you can go ahead and use your thumbs up or thumbs down function or your raise hand button. If you don't know how to do that, you go ahead, you click on participants, and then you find your name, and it will have that more function. Or you'll have the down on the bottom of participants, your yes, no, or your more option there with a thumbs up, thumbs down. So go ahead, if you've heard of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 words, give us a thumbs up, a check, an X.
So when I first started teaching, I had taught English as a foreign language overseas, which is a different sort of thing. But when I came here and I knew I had to be picking out academic words, I very carefully kind of looked through all the text and trying to figure out which are important words, which are high utility words. And I was not bad at it, like it's fine. But about my third or fourth year teaching, I went to a presentation at MATSAL, which is the conference for ESL teachers. And somebody gave a presentation on the academic word list. And the academic word list was developed by this linguist in New Zealand. And she just took a ton of secondary and university textbooks from England, from New Zealand, from Canada, from the US, put them in a database and, spit things out and came up with 570 word families sorted by word frequency and range, which occur frequently over a wide range of academic texts. This list does not include the 2,000 most common words in English. And what's really interesting here is that approximately 10% of the vocabulary in academic nonfiction texts is from the academic word list, compared to only 1.4 of the words in fiction texts. So these words on the academic word list, they're the tier 2 words. They're the words that people don't think to teach, like analyze, but which people get stuck when they do not know. So everybody wants to teach the tier 3 words, which are incredibly useful, like photosynthesis or agriculture. But these general tier 2 academic words are very useful. And I saw this and I'm like, this list is great. So you see where it says click here for the academic word list? Later, I'm going to click it so you can look at it, but later, so you have access to this now. And I have a link here to like the actual information from the academic word list. But if you look at this, let me get rid of this link. Sublist 1 are the most common words, the words that appear most frequently in English. And sublist 10 are the words that appear, but the least frequently of these words. So I used to have a poster of these words, huge, that took up like a whole wall in one of my classrooms. And I still have a smaller poster, but every single word on this list is high utility. Every single word. There's not a word on here that is not useful to know. And every college-educated English speaker knows all of these words. So when I first started working with this, I gave kids a pre-test of sublist 1 words. And my kids in ESL tended to know an average of 55% of these words. Some kids only knew 25%, some kids knew 60%. I did it for like 4 years running. Year after year, the kids who knew 80% of these words by March exited ESL and scored proficient on MCAS. It was astounding. And when I first started testing it, I thought, I wonder how high achieving middle schoolers in this urban school that I teach, I wonder how well they know these words. So let me go back. You know what? So I had students in my class and she got 55%. And I was telling kids how useful this is. And she's like, Miss, so you're telling me that there's actually a 7th grader in my homeroom who knows all of the academic word list words. Like they could not believe that kids knew it. And I knew that kids knew it because one day when the math teacher was gone, I stole her honors math class and paid them Doritos to take the test.
Michelle.
I did. 100%. This is long enough ago that they didn't care as much about snacks as they do now. But 100% of the kids in the honors math class knew 100% of the words on the academic word list. And they could do the quiz in 10 minutes. This is in Worcester. This is not in Concord or Natick or someplace where these are just ordinary. Actually, I lie when I said it's Worcester. It was Fitchburg.
Okay.
But same deal. The kids who are doing in middle school know all the academic word list things on the beginning. And so I was telling these kids this, and she's like, there are not kids who know this. No way. I'm like, you know kids who know this? And she's like, who? And I said, well, think about anybody who goes around reading a big book like this. Those kids know the words. And so the next day in homeroom, she was also in my homeroom class, she brought up this other girl. And the other girl said, Miss, Viviana says that you have a really cool vocabulary test. Would it be okay if I took it? So I gave her the test and she got 100% in like 3 minutes. I'm telling you, just teaching these words again and again and again is really powerful. So the quiz, we're not going to spend time on this now, it says later, but the quiz I gave people has been the exact questions that I used are now on some Kahoots. So if you wanted to go back and ever use these for middle school, for high school, to see how your kids do, you are welcome to it.
So Michelle, I just want to pause for a minute
Yeah.
before we get into the actual tool, because we had asked these participants earlier if they had experience with what the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 vocabulary words were. And we have about 50-50 saying yes and no. So I want you to know that we will make sure we put a resource in the slide deck for you that has kind of an explanation of what tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 is. Or if we have time at the end, we'll make sure that we kind of throw in that definition. But I want to make sure you show them this tool. So I don't want to take time now.
Yeah, but I will, so I'll give just a quick tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 are the ordinary words that everybody who speaks English well knows. Window, love, floor, right? And newcomers, people who are learning English, might need to learn these tier 1 words, or some kids just missed one, but it's like the basic words. Tier 3 words are the content specific vocabulary that you need to teach your content. Photosynthesis, agriculture, finance, whatever. Tier 2 words are these academic words that are used often with multiple definitions across a wide range of topics. And they're very high utility words. So I told you that this academic word list kind of changed my life. Wow, this is a really good way of thinking of vocabulary. The AWL highlighter, wow, when I first found this, it made my life so much faster. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to work for kindergarten and second grade teachers, but all the way down to like third grade, if you paste text into nonfiction text into this academic word highlighter, you're going to get words. And let me give you an example. So this is repeating, so I'll just talk while it's going and you can look at it. This is just what I'm doing this week with my kids. I'm doing the killer flu of 1918. I copied that text and I pasted it into this academic word list finder, and you'll see, I zoomed it up a little bit big, these words come out, right? All of these words are useful. Contacted, estimated, emphasis. So it gives you more words than you can use in any one lesson, but in 1 second, I know what the academic words are and what tier they're on in an article. Every single thing that I read with my kids, I paste into this. So this is just a GIF, so it's not like really high resolution, but I'm going to give you this idea. You know, it highlights it in the text and it gives you this list. And so what you do with them, sorry, I got myself lost, I apologize. So that academic word list gives, this academic word highlighter gives you the words in sublist 1, sublist 2, sublist 3, sublist 4, and so on. All things being equal, you want to make sure that everybody knows the sublist 1 and 2 words that are necessary for your text. But sometimes, you know, kids do already know those. So you want to kind of start at the top and work your way down and pick a few words to use for instruction. Now, this is the one that I use. I use this all the time. And I have, when I was getting prepared for this lesson, I was thinking, you know, I'm not so kind to the first, second, and third grade teachers. I wonder if there's now a resource similar to this that works for elementary school. And so there is another one called the Academic Word Finder from Achieve the Core. And this allows you to target tier 2 vocabulary by grade level. And I have this little W here. This is the wordsmith.net logo. That's a very good online dictionary. And the Achieve the Core Academic Word Finder actually gives you tier 2 words by grade level and also puts in some definitions. So let me show you something about that. So you go to the Academic Word Finder and you start an entry, you paste your text, right? So you paste your text there and then you hit submit. And then you can select a grade. You can go 6th grade, 2nd grade, any grade you want. And you can name your list. And then the product that this gives you is a little bit different than the first one I showed you. See, this has the word, and then it has all the different definitions. And it's giving you a few words that are appropriate to teach at that grade level. And so whatever topic you teach, whether you're an elementary school grade level teacher or a middle school or high school content teacher, whatever language, whatever subject you teach, you want to be incorporating the highest utility academic vocabulary as you go. And these two tools, I use the academic word list, but I can see that this thing would be really good. It takes me seconds to decide what words to teach. And anything that saves us time makes us better teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this here is the one that I get from the academic word list finder. So the academic word list highlighter. So I put the words in. These are the words from my article on the flu epidemic of 1918. So all things being equal, pick the first words on the list that many students are unlikely to have already mastered. Now, I'll tell you what, once I have kids that I know well, that I'm in my classroom, sometimes I just throw this list up on the wall and on the projector and ask them, hey, you guys, pick out 3 or 4 words we should work on today. And they know that if you start at the top and work your way down, you're going to get the most important words. So this is what I came with, and this is actually the assignment I did today. So I have students write in the notebooks. You don't have to write in the notebooks, but I'm kind of modeling this for you. When they are finished, they drag the green check mark to the purple bar at left. So this is, I'm just showing you how I use Pear Deck for this. So I say, copy the academic vocabulary from the killer flu of 1918. Label each word with a number from the vocabulary rating scale. Now, I mean, it's low tech because it's really just a slide, but having kids think about how well they know their words and giving it a rating scale. 4, I know it well. I can explain what it means. I use it. 3, I sort of know it. When I see it, I usually understand it. 2, I've seen or heard of it, but I'm not sure I know what it means. Or 1, no clue, I've never heard of it. You know, I tell kids there are different levels of knowing something. You know, when you say to kids, hey, do you know what this word means? They say yes. And then you say, well, what does it mean? Oh, I don't know. But they sort of did know it, or they wouldn't have said yes. So just forcing kids to spend a moment and assign a level of knowledge for themselves makes them think about the word. So they're thinking about how well they know it before you get started. And I almost always use this before as I'm introducing any new set of words. I have them write it down. I don't have them write down the definitions, but I just have them write down the word and put this rating scale. And you can click here to make a copy of the vocabulary rating scale. And you can print it out on a big poster and put it on your wall when you actually have a classroom again. Like I use this all the time, year in, year out. And I didn't exactly make it. I copied some and then changed some. And I don't even know who to give credit for because I don't remember who I stole it from.
So Michelle, I also like that you're having them physically write in the notebooks. And so in remote learning, I just want to highlight how important that is to get kids not just to be typing. I mean, we were talking about the difference between those 2 words earlier, right? Like type and write. Like I want you to actually write these in your notebook. We know that there is some research behind students actually writing and how that's going to help fit that word in their brains.
Yeah, so I always start out every class with some kind of free write. It's usually not, in fact, writing down vocabulary, but I always have them write. And then this drag the icon when you're done is a very useful way to hold them accountable. Sometimes I have them show me their notebooks, or sometimes I later have them read to me on a video what they wrote in their notebooks, but writing is so useful. Okay, so I'm going to show the responses here. So in my class, you don't have to do it because you didn't do the work, but well, not that you should have done the work. You're fine. But that sounded like I was saying you didn't do the work. But when kids are done, they drag it to the end, and then I can say, like, towards the end, I see that we've got 10 people done and 3 people still working. How much time do you need? 30 seconds, 1 minute. It's a good way to keep people focused that we're all in a group together. Okay, so now we're going to give you a little chunk of time for you to try it. Find a text online that you would use in your teaching, or just use a news article, open up a new tab, get something from the Washington Post or something, or an art, some piece of text that you're using in your teaching. And then you can copy and paste it into the AWL highlighter. That's the one that puts it in order of sublist 1, sublist 2, sublist 3, or the academic word finder. That's the one that puts it into grade level tier 2. So you can click on this right in my Pear Deck to go to these again.
And I've also put them in the chat, so they're there for folks.
Okay, thanks. So take a moment and put a set of text in. Analyze the results. Target vocabulary that is either essential for the topic or is high up on the list and likely unknown to your students. Which 5 words would you teach? So we're going to give you, let's say, shall we say like 10 minutes?
Yeah, let's give them 12 minutes.
12 minutes? Okay, so 6:54?
Yeah.
Okay, and we're here. If you have any questions, you can unmute, you can ask it in the chat. So try this out, everybody.
So Michelle, it looks like one person may have been having trouble linking from the Pear Deck on that vocabulary rating scale. I can see it's live in the slide deck. So I put it in the chat, so there's no worries, it's there.
Okay, well, if did you pull it from the slide deck? Did I correctly put it in the slide deck?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so at the end of this session, we are going to give you the slide deck. So everybody will have every link that's in here.
Mm-hmm. And you will be using some of the words that you're finding right now later on in the presentation. So as you're going through and pasting your text into the academic word highlighter or the academic word finder, we're going to be asking you to use a couple of those words in 2 of the next tools that we're going to show you. And again, you can feel free to put questions or comments in the chat or unmute. Michelle, I'm looking right now through my resource to see if I can't find something on that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So Linda, in order to access the Pear Deck, I do not believe you have to register with your email. Is that correct, Michelle?
For the participants or just for the?
For the participant to participate in this Pear Deck.
I do not believe so, unless I made some mistake.
Yeah, I think
for the academic word finder.
Oh, for the academic word finder, do you have to register? Is it a
Oh,
lot?
yes. Sorry. For the academic word finder, you do have to register. It's free.
Thank you for clarifying, Linda.
Thank you.
So it's funny, as I search my drive, I find a lot with everything that has my vocabulary words classified as tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3.
So
But I'm looking for more of like a definition or instruction on it.
yeah, there's one from Color in Colorado that I just put in the chat,
Perfect.
which is very basic. They always put things in like parent-friendly language.
I think that's so important. That's where we should be starting, though, right? It's kind of like that awareness level and that skill level. Like you have to start at awareness. I'm a graphic person, so I like to find my graphics.
Yeah, there probably is one.
Yeah, I got some here. So everyone, you have about 7 more minutes to play. Again, feel free to unmute or put questions or comments in the chat as you're using both tools.
I found a kind of nice graphic that I might put into our slide deck. Add it.
Oh, I like this one. Literacy and focus. Are you adding it to our resources page, Michelle?
This is more than I can manage at the moment.
Okay.
Because my 2 screens are not working very well.
I forget you're presenting too. I apologize.
Yeah. So I really, really don't want to mess up my presentation.
I have the ability to have you kind of split off to the side right now.
So just as an aside, remember how I told you all the great uses for talking points where you send a text to parents?
Mm-hmm.
Today I sent an email or a text message to like about 15 parents of kids who did not complete my classroom assignment after class. You know, they're supposed to work on it and then finish it. And I just glanced at my email and I have like 8 messages. I talked to her, she's doing it now. And then like emails from the kids. I just turned this in, Ms. Austin.
Love it.
I'm gonna turn off my screen for just 1 second.
Yep. All right, so about 2 or 3 more minutes. Excuse me.
Bless you.
All right, I've got both of those resources into the slide deck now that they'll get.
So this is not for time pressure. I'm just modeling something I do with my kids and I find it very useful. I didn't always use my phone. In class, when they're all working on notebooks and they have physical things in front of them, I put this on the projector. But I just don't want to, I want to minimize how many different things I'm projecting at the same time.
Well, I find also sometimes that I'm with students and I have them working on something, it's not always in the tab that the meet is in. So even having it projecting in the meet doesn't necessarily help them if they can't see the screen. And so those verbal cues are so important as well if they have
Right, exactly. So I do both.
Mm-hmm.
And I might say, I mean, here we kind of set it for you, but if I have kids working on something, what I actually usually do is when I think we're about 2/3 done with the amount of time that most kids need, I usually just say, hi, boys and girls, how much more time do you need? Put it in the chat.
Yep.
It's write the number of minutes and they'll say 2, 3, there's going to be some outlier that says 10.
It's amazing those little modifications we have to make for remote learning, right?
Right. And so, and then I said, okay, 3 minutes sounds good. Everybody try and wrap up in 3 minutes if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just hold this up there. I mean, I'm not giving them a hard time, but it does keep them from rolling over and going back to sleep.
Oh, I don't know. That one's scary. That one's going by very quickly with the seconds. That might be.
Oh yeah. The last minute is frightening.
Yes. All right, so if you haven't yet, go ahead and respond in the Pear Deck for which 5 words from your article you think you'd teach.
So I'm going to show the responses.
Yep.
So, like, look at these. There is not a estimate, evidence.
Nice.
Estimate or estimate, depending on whether it's a noun or a verb. Evidence, significant, initial, consumer. Like, look at these. There is not a word here that is not really high utility.
Yes. And I loved it. I like that we're not saying important, right? That's one of those words that always gets me, is because what's important to me may not be important to you. So high utility is a great way of saying that, high usage, essential for meaning, but important. Oh, it's one of those ones that gets me.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you take, I'm working with middle school kids who have failed to exit ESL in 5 years. For the kids who are not academic prospering. And one of the main reasons they are not prospering academically is because they were listening to teachers like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 and they missed a lot of this vocabulary that was not explicitly taught. And explicitly teaching a little bit of vocabulary as you go really, really helps. I love these words. They're great. Okay. So this is for later. I'm not going to spend time on it now, but I'm going to show you how I use something called Wordsmith to create question banks from vocabulary lists. So I had to cut it. If I did a longer presentation, I would definitely include it. And people always say, oh my God, this is so useful. But I'm putting a video in here to show you how to do it, and you can do it on your own time. This is something I do every single week. I teach vocabulary at the beginning of the week. We have it in an article. We do something with it. And then on Fridays, I make a Kahoot that has some content for what we read, but also vocabulary for what we read. And the Wordsmith, it makes like an automatic multiple choice quiz for you. Huge time saver. So this is just to know that this is in your slide deck and you can use it at a later point. And then I'm just about done with my time, but this is a real quote from Real Quick Kids. Somebody said, I feel like we just learned this word a few weeks ago, but I don't remember. And somebody else remembered what Ms. Austin always said and told the kid, you have to forget a word a whole bunch of times before you finally remember it. So we're not, for durable acquisition of vocabulary, it's not what you know this Friday, it's cycling back again and again and again. whenever these words appear in what you're teaching. Okay, so the academic word highlighter, or the other one that you used,
The academic word finder.
academic word finder, we should have changed the slide. Rate the usability of this resource. Oh, sorry, Christine, you go ahead.
That's how you have it, right? So the same two questions, the same sliding scale here. So not likely to use it, very likely to use it, not likely to share, or very likely to share. Well, you guys are filling that in. I have to share a story. So I got a birthday card from my in-laws a while back when I became a teacher. I won't say the year. And it was Charlie Brown, the teacher from Charlie Brown. And when you opened it up, it went wah, wah, wah. And I kept that with me forever. The battery just ran out 2 years ago on this greeting card, so that you could read a room. And when you were in the room and you knew that the kids were just not picking up what you were putting down, I used to go to my little desk or my card or my projector, and I'd pick up the card and I'd open it, and across the classroom you'd hear wah, 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 wah. It's so true. Sometimes that's just what kids are hearing, and you have to, as a teacher, just be ready for those moments. Harder to tell remotely, I will say that. Much harder to read the room.
It is so much harder to read the room. Okay, good. Well, good. I'm glad that this is a useful resource. I'm telling you, the AWL highlighter changed my life. I'm an ESL teacher, so it's different than if you're a content teacher, but I think of mining for vocabulary in whatever we're doing, pulling the vocabulary out and making sure that it is the most useful vocabulary instead of the fanciest vocabulary.
You know, from a content teacher point of view, though, Michelle, I agree. It's also changed the way that I was teaching, because if the kids don't understand their context clues, they're not going to be able to then decipher or be able to kind of fix and understand their high tier 3 level academic vocabulary. So, you know, content level or not, great tool.
Yeah. Okay. So, Christine, you take it away.
All right, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to introduce one quick kind of tool. And then what we're going to do is 4 ways to introduce oral vocabulary in your classroom. And Michelle and I do want to start by saying these are not the only tools and strategies that are out there. They're just what we're presenting in this hour and a half. So as I go through, I'm going to talk about what a Frere model is. If you don't know what it is, we're going to use one together, and then I'm going to give you some time, and you're going to be able to create one for yourself, either digitally or no tech option, actually using paper. Go ahead, Michelle. All right, so a Frere model, for those of you who may not know what it is, or a refresher for those who do, I didn't learn it as a Frere model. I learned it as word art. That's just what I learned that it was called. And then I understood that it was classified under this kind of graphic organizer or this kind of vocabulary usage tool. And so what it is just that. It's a graphic organizer used to help build students' vocabulary. We want them to be able to define specific vocabulary words using this tool. In the typical Frere model, they use the examples and the non-examples. In our modified Frere model, our modified graphic matrix, we do not have that as one of the squares or one of the areas. You could always change that if that's something that you wanted to put into your Frere model. So again, also known as word art, you may have heard it as Foursquare.
It's 7 o'clock.
Thank you. You may have heard it as Foursquare or other vocabulary tool names that they have. The link here for you is the research behind Frere models and vocabulary acquisition. So I always think it's important to put in kind of the research behind the strategy and why we're using it. So the research is there if you wanted to take a look at the studies that have been done. So here are some just looking at them examples. You can see that you'll have the word in the middle. You'll always have some kind of an illustration, some kind of a visual, whether now students are go ahead and downloading that image or whether they're drawing it themselves. That's really important in this model, is to have that visual representation of the vocabulary word. You'll also always have a sentence using the word. So some way where you can have that student use the word with context. And that brings us back to, I always think about the word property because I was a science teacher. And when I was using the word property, I was thinking of the property of a mineral, its hardness, its cleavage, right? I was not thinking of the property that I'm going to buy or sell. And too often students would come in and you could see sometimes their sentences would be, we are going to redo our property. And I'm like, okay, so we have to relook at this vocabulary word. I can tell by your sentence, you're not using it in the right context. You have the different vocabulary word in your head. So that sentence is very telling. And then you also can have the definition that the teacher gives as one of the options, and having them write that definition in their own words as one of the options. Have them write examples of the vocabulary word. Again, it's what's going to fit for that word. Not all words are the same. So if I was doing the word tornado, I probably wouldn't use examples as one of my squares on the Frere model, right? Because that's not going to help them to define the vocabulary word. All right, go ahead, Michelle. So the first one that we're going to do together now is the digital form of the matrix graphic organizer. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to click on that title there where it says matrix graphic organizer. You're going to make a copy of the second slide, and then you're going to paste it below so that you can have your own copy of the slide. And that way, what we'll do is eventually the slide deck will be populated with about 60 slides. And then I want you to go ahead and watch slide 1 as I talk about how to use the model. So Michelle, can you go ahead and project your screen into that graphic organizer, and I'll go in there?
Yeah.
Perfect. So go into that link. And then let's have everyone go ahead and join us. Did you put the link in the chat?
I did.
Perfect. I can see everyone is just about there with me. Great. So I'm going to stay here on slide 1. That will be what presents on Michelle's screen. So that will be in the Zoom meet. And then everyone else, I just want you to go ahead and copy and paste a slide so you're all working then on your own slide. Again, if you need help with that, as far as the technology goes, just put it in the chat, or Michelle and I will definitely help you out with that. I'll give everyone a minute. So make sure you copy slide 1. It looks like slide 2 and slide 3 are now missing some information. So I'm going to take those out. There we go.
And do you see how there are little, like this anonymous leopard, anonymous hippo? You want to be the only person on your screen, I think. Is that correct, Christine?
Yes, we want them to be working on their own.
Okay, so we have a whole bunch of people in slide 1 and slide 2. You guys need to go find another slide, or make another slide. So you're the only person in a slide.
Yep, so copy and paste. And as people paste, you might get moved down. There are 60 people here, so be patient. All right. So again, I'm going to work in slide 1. If you want to see what I'm doing, you can go back to the Zoom and watch on that screen, or you could always go to slide 1 and watch. Oh, someone just went ahead and pasted some things there. So I'm going to take that away. There we go. Love Google. All right, so in a Frere model, you would start by going ahead and putting your word in the center. So right now, I'm going to be the only one typing in this first slide. So I'm going to use the word producer. And then what I would want to do for students, and I would say, okay, let's give a visual representation. Now, if I were in the classroom, I would love for them to draw that. Otherwise, I could have them insert an image here. So I can always use in Google, insert image, and then I could upload or search the web. For those students who have executive functioning, this is great because what it does is it keeps it on the same screen. So if you didn't know that about Google Slides, this is a great tool. Now look at this. Notice the images I get for producer. If I'm a science teacher and I'm doing plants.
You know what? It's not showing yours. How about if I search for it so it shows? Okay. So yep. I'm going to go right up here and I'm going to insert image, and then I'm going to search the web.
And type in producer.
And then I'm going to type in producer.
And look what comes up. Now, as the science teacher, those are not the images that I want. And so this, again, is where those context clues and where what Michelle was highlighting in that first tool, the multi-language translation tool, is so key for our students. So I might say, okay, put producer, plant. And so let's try that.
Oops, I typed plan. I apologize.
That's okay. Plant. And now here I'm going to get the images that I want for my science class. Again, if a student ended up putting an image of the musical producer here in this box, as a teacher, that is a great thing for me because now I know that they are not clearly understanding the vocabulary that I want them to understand for the science word. And so again, the FAIR model is a great way to be able to see those misconceptions. Now, again, I
Do you
have
want
my,
me to put, do you want me to put this one in?
yeah, whichever one you like. That's a plant.
Oh, and then I'm just going to make it nice and small.
Yep, we resize using our squares. And so then I would have the child go ahead to the student and type a sentence in using the word, put a definition in their own words. And here I have the definition the teacher gave you. I find this is helpful when we first start doing this with students so that they have that to fall back on. I always tell them, I'm not asking you to memorize the definition. I will always give that to you. And I think it's important for students to remember that, and for us as teachers to remember, they can just Google it. So why not give it to them? It's going to be just as easy for them to Google it, but now you're going to give them the definition that's going to be best suited for them and scaffolds and levels for your students. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is take about 3 minutes, and on your slide, go ahead and pick one of the vocabulary words and type.
That you chose before.
Yep, that you chose before in that academic word list, and create your FAIR model for it as a student. I'm just going to poke around the slides and see how everyone's doing. We have equivalent, we've got some math. We can see that this can definitely be used for any content area. Most grade levels, if the students have the ability to type. There's always scaffolds with Screencastify as far as speaking or using your microphone to speak in if they don't have the typing ability. Not enough time for that today, but they're there, those scaffolds. I see researcher.
When I have kids in classrooms, or I would do it now if we were allowed to have breakout rooms, but in Worcester Public Schools, we can't put the kids in breakout rooms. But I would have one table work together to do one word and another table work together to do another word. And so I might make a 5-slide deck and have the 5 different tables, each working on one slide. And then we do a mini presentation at the end.
It's a great collaborative way to do that. So I'm going to give you 1 more minute. And again, I just want you to play around with the tool.
And then if it's not going to blow people's mind, I'm going to tell you that I made this graphic organizer, and later I'm giving you a thing where it shares.
We did with the instructions. I'm going to have them change the color in just a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm such a bossy boots. I'm such a bossy boots. I'm like the perpetual participant. Me.
All right, so it's a great segue, Michelle, right? So as we go in here, you always get the students, right? Michelle can tell you, design, graphics, black and white would work perfect for me on a slide. Michelle is definitely the key to all of our presentations and adding in our graphics and our icons and making it look pretty, right? So we always have our students who do want that, like that makes them feel successful when it has that visually appealing look. And so one thing we can do here is if we change the background, correct?
No.
The layout. If we change the layout of this on the slide, I can change the colors behind it. So I'm here on slide 1. I'm going to click on layout. Do you want to do this, Michelle? Because they can't see.
Yeah, I can. So you can see it. So, so if you go on slide layout, see how I have all these different layouts with different colors? The reason I did this was because when I first started using this graphic organizer, kids would spend, I don't know, 7 minutes picking their colors instead of doing their work. So I'm like, you get choice. You just don't have infinite choice.
Yes.
So everybody can pick their own color combinations.
There we go. I have some people trying it already over there in slide 4. So go ahead again, it's slide layout, and then you can pick your color. And again, this gives students that feeling of autonomy, right? They have some control over it, they have some choice, but like Michelle said, it's not an hour picking a color in a different shade of a color, which can definitely eat up your moments.
And can I jump in? Let me just show one thing because I think it's important.
Yeah.
So the one, I tried to make this pretty like kid proof, and you can't make it 100% kid proof. So let me gonna show you how kids can screw up your slide deck. Okay, background. I'm gonna choose an image of sneakers. And then, so I'm gonna choose these. Then I'm gonna insert, and then I'm gonna add this to theme. Look, I wrecked everybody's slide all at once. It makes your class go, ah! The person who did it can just hit Control Z or undo. And it is undone. So these are like backgrounds. If you change the background, it does mess it up a little bit. Okay, go ahead, Christine.
No, you're fine. So let's go ahead on to slide 29.
Okay, let me go back here. Slide 29, yep.
Yep. And before I have you do it, I do want to go over the foldable instructions. So I told you that I was also going to give you a no tech option. And again, I think it's important to have our students writing. And so one of the things that I love are foldables. And I do have a video of me doing this, which is here in B, if you can't quite see me now in speaker view. But you take your 8x11 piece of paper, you fold it hamburger style. I just did elementary school for 6 years, and I learned my hamburger and my hot dog folds, right? So one hamburger this way, and then another hamburger this way. And of course, you'll have your 4 equal squares. Now what you do is you take this inner corner. So the corner that has the folds, not the corner that has the openings. And you're going to fold that into a triangle. Now, how big you make your triangle is how much writing space you want them to have in the center area. I want them to be able to write a description. I'm going to say, go ahead and make this opening the size of your thumb. If I only want them to write a word, I'll say, go ahead and take 3 fingers and make that your opening. And this just gives the students an idea of how big their triangle needs to be. So then I make my folds, creases nice. And when I open it up, you can see that I now have a Frere model here at home where I have, I'm going to try to get the light, my 4 boxes and then my center space. And so this can help students. It's going to help with their tactile ability. If you have the young ones, they're using their fine motor skills, right? So foldables are great for that. And it's also that no tech option. Go ahead, Michelle, you wanted to add something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was off screen. I apologize.
You're all right. So
I'm really sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm used to using a different thing than Zoom. I'm sorry.
Right. So we're now back at the You Try It. We've tried the digital template together. If you want to go ahead and click on that A, it's the actual copy with the instructions of how to do everything. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to either make a foldable or go ahead and play around with that digital template with instructions and try to create another Frere model. We definitely don't have time for 3 of the vocabulary words. So how about 1? Choose a different vocabulary word from the exercise you did with Michelle and give it a shot now on your own. And again, we're here for questions or comments in the chat or unmute.
Sorry, I was off on the other screen.
How dare you, Michelle?
I thought I was on tab share instead of screen share.
I forgive you. All right, so I'm putting this in the chat. That's the template with instructions. All right, Michelle, can you make that 1 minute?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so I'd love it if you could come back now in these last 30 seconds and on this Pear Deck, which content areas, which grade levels do you think that this FRAIR model could be used with? What's up, buddy?
So we've got 14 of 56 responses.
All right, let's see what they said.
Okay. Reading and science, second grade, 1 to 5. Any grade level, any content area. Early education, elementary education, all of them.
Love it. And I
Yeah,
will say I have used it in all content and all grade levels. I've only taught science and math, but I definitely have used it in all grade levels. All right. So let's keep going.
Okay.
So really quickly go ahead and oh, sorry, Michelle.
Sorry, we did the same thing. So this modified FRAIR model and matrix rate the usability of this resource, whether it's electronic or in paper. Not likely to use this in teaching practice. Not likely to use this in teaching practice. Very likely to use this in teaching practice. Not likely to share this with a colleague. Very likely to share this with a colleague. Just real quick.
I think that's enough people respond. Let's go ahead and show because I want to make sure we get to the rest. All right, there we go.
Yep.
So we're still right around that same area, which is great.
Okay.
All right, so the next piece is all about oral vocabulary, and this is really important. And I just used 2 different kind of pieces of research here that are quoted out. I'm not going to read them for you. You can read them as I talk. But the idea is that really using your speech and being able to speak the words out loud and hear the words out loud is so essential to not only our ELL learners picking up vocabulary and learning new vocabulary, but our early learners as well to be able to hear that. And I think it's something that we all innately know, but I wanted to make sure I showed that there's definitely research behind this as well. And in this remote learning environment, if some of you are going into the classroom to start teaching that, it's something that we have to be very deliberate with, because as you can see, you're all muted today. And so getting students to go ahead and practice that vocabulary orally is something that as teachers, we need to plan deliberately for and have certain teacher moves, so to speak, that we're going to use. Go ahead, Michelle. So I'm going to introduce 4 for you today. One of them is called chanting. We have structured sentence frames. Know it. It's a rule that I always had in my classroom, whether you were speaking or writing, and then something called word cheering. So I'm going to start with chanting, and I'm going to ask a few people if they are willing to go ahead and unmute their mics for me. And I'm going to do it by the alphabet. So I'm going to say if your first name starts with an R, or if your first name starts with an E. If you wouldn't mind unmuting. And then we're going to do a chant together that I would do with my students in the classroom as we were practicing vocabulary. And so I'll say the chant first, all the way through, and then you're going to fill in your words after the words say. So I would say, when I say producer, you say plant. So the words that you're going to say out loud are producer and plant. Okay? So again, I'll do it fully again. When I say producer, you say plant. All right, ready, my volunteers here, voluntold? When I say
producer,
you say
plant.
When I say
Producer,
you say
plant.
When I say
Producer,
say
plant.
What if I did this? You ready? When I say plant, you say
Producer.
And again, it's a really quick just chant. It gets everyone involved. They are saying the words. They don't have to yell them loud. They can say them quietly, but it's getting them to speak. All right, you can go ahead and unmute. Sorry, mute again. Thank you guys, that was awesome. All right, our next one, if you want to go ahead to the next slide there for me, Michelle. These are what I call the structured sentence frames. And so when I taught science, these tier 3 vocabulary words were really important. And it was all about getting students to be able to use them correctly in context. So when I did this, we would actually be throwing yarn around the room or throwing objects at each other as we were saying the sentences. And so if I were in the classroom, I might have a picture of a caterpillar wearing it as a necklace. And again, I've done this with my high school students, with my middle school students. They will play along. They actually enjoy it. So if I had the picture of the caterpillar, I would say the sentence for them the first time. I am an herbivore and I eat producers. And then I'd have them repeat that for me. And what they would do is then they would take their object and they would throw it to a producer that was in the room. So again, I'm doing this oral vocabulary practice, but I'm also having them show me they understand who else is a producer because that person is wearing that image. In the remote classroom, I would try to get students, right, to go ahead and show their cameras, and Worcester, we can't require that. If they didn't, then I'd have them change their name or somehow put on their screen what they were so students could then call out to a person. Would anyone like to volunteer to go ahead and try this with me? You can go ahead and raise your hand in the participant list. I'm looking. A thumbs up.
Linda K raised her hand. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. All right, Linda, go ahead and unmute.
Yep.
All right, so Linda, I'm gonna have you be the hawk. And so Linda, as the hawk, you get to be a carnivore. And carnivores just eat other consumers. So you can see by the arrows, you could either eat the robin or the caterpillar, or the omnivore or the herbivore. What would you not eat, Linda? If you're a carnivore?
Carnivore.
You probably would not eat your own, you're right, but definitely not a producer, right? So when you say your sentence, you can say, I am a carnivore and I eat omnivores. Okay, can you try that for me?
I am a carnivore and I eat omnivore.
Perfect, nice job. So again, we'd go around the room and have everyone have that ability to speak it out with me modeling it first. All right, thank you, Linda, you can mute. Can you go back a slide for me, Michelle? So our third one is the no it option. And the no it is simply this. You cannot use the word it in my classroom because I don't know what it means. It's like that word important. And this is really key because it makes students use the words that they mean. If I say, well, I'm a producer or I'm a consumer and I eat it, I don't know what it is. I don't know if you have that vocabulary word down. I don't know if you understand it, even if you're writing. And how I would do that as a teacher is I would just say, oh, I'm sorry, can you tell me what it is? What is it again? And it's fun because in the classroom, kids will start calling each other out, right? They'll be like, they use it, what is it? And it's one way for them to also make sure that they're engaged and paying attention. So I always say no it's in the classroom. And then finally, we have this idea of word sharing. So go ahead, I think it's 2 slides, Michelle. Perfect. So in word sharing, students can sing, chant, and move to the components of new words. So in primary elementary school, sometimes you use this for your syllables as you break down the syllables of words or as you break down compound words. Here, it's just about getting that whole body language, that total body response to a word. So if I were doing producer, I might say producer, and I'd have kids do it with me. So if you have your cameras on or not, it's okay, but let's try a couple. Ready? So when we use the word consumer, I want you to put your hands towards your mouth. All right, ready? So on the count of 3, we're all going to say consumer and put our hands towards our mouth. 1, 2, 3. Consumer.
Consumer.
Perfect. And what we're doing, right, we get that total body response. So I have different examples here. You could pretend you're going to eat like a mouse. You use the silly voice. This is where, you know, you can have a lot of fun with it, and kids will experiment and they'll come up with their own, right? Can we floss while we do it? Can we do can we do this dance? Absolutely. It's just about getting them moving and speaking that vocabulary. All right, go ahead, Michelle. So I'm going to give you now, if I look at the time, 2 minutes to go ahead and try it. So you're going to choose one of the vocabulary words that you had in that academic vocabulary, or a different one, and try to think of a chant or a sentence frame or a word cheer that you could use with your students, and go ahead and jot those down. And again, as always, you can unmute or put something in the chat if you have questions.
If I drag this over here, what are you guys looking at? The you try it?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, about 1 more minute. All right, Michelle, has anyone responded in the Pear Deck yet?
12 of 56.
All right, I'm also going to change the response a little bit, and don't worry if you already responded. I want to change the question just because of our time. Would you be willing to share your example of your chant or your sentence frame, or what word cheer you would use? So if you want to share that example in the Pear Deck, instead of what content and grade level areas you think you could use with it, that'd be great. And we can kind of have just that waterfall share and see what folks are using. And I think we have about 40 more seconds for that. All right, Michelle, let's see what they got.
Okay. Oh, here's a good one. Sticky.
I love it. Students stick their hands together like clapping. Love it. I am an experience. I am a rainy day. Very nice. When I say, where was that one? When I say something.
Herbivore.
Say plants. Perfect. Yep. Yes, right. Modeled properly. I love that. The rainbow, the move over their head. So using that shape as well. We can see that with our primary. When I say migration, you say movement. And I love the alliteration, right? The MM there is also going to help students. Now we have those tier 2 words. When I say response, you say answer.
I like this realize one.
These are all great ideas, guys. I love it.
I love it.
All right, I think we can keep going.
Okay, and we're...
One more little rateability scale. You guys know the drill by now. Sorry, Michelle, I took that one over again.
Yep, that's fine.
So go ahead real quick, because we want to make sure we get you out. All right, let's see what they said. There we go. So we still have that range. We've been about 3 to 7 the whole time.
Okay, and then...
So we have the resources, right?
Yep, and then what I was trying to do was add some more resources.
So we can share the slide deck with them after, I believe.
Yeah, so, well, here's a copy of this slide deck. Click here for a copy of the slide deck. So this is the slide deck that you have right now. And actually, I wanted to add some vocabulary games that I should have added yesterday. That's what I was trying.
Because, yeah, this is live. So as long as you guys, I'm going to put the link in the chat too. As long as you don't make a copy of it, then you'll get the live edits that we'll make to it.
And I'm going to put them in like right after this session.
Perfect. All right. And then is that it for that, Michelle? And then we have one more slide, right?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure if you copy and paste this link someplace so you'll have it after the meeting, then you can make a copy of this slide deck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
so we are just a little over 1 minute, but I want to say thank you. You guys were awesome. I loved seeing the participation in the Pear Deck. You were definitely engaged and participating, so thank you for that. Again, you'll have this, but it's our Twitter handles as well as our emails. Share anything that we did today, and always feel free to reach out if you have questions. And I would just say, Michelle, to them that I wish you guys the best of luck. It's was not my original intent to be in the teaching career, but I would not change it for the world. Michelle, do you want to add anything?
yeah, what I'm going to say is, I don't know, Christine, you have children in your house, so I don't want to commit you to doing anything. But I'm happy to stay on for like 10 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
If people, so you're welcome to, like, I always tell kids, even if they've been hiding out, you know, show your face for a minute so I can see you, wave bye-bye. And then if anybody wants to stay and ask a question or two, we're happy to do that. Thank you for spending 90 minutes with us. We hope it was useful for you.
All right.